What is the Feast of Booths? And what does it have to do with Jesus? That's what we're going to talk about today in John 7. Hi, this is Jill from the North Woods, talking about the Bible, one small step at a time. Right now, we begin in Galilee. Jesus is there avoiding Judea or avoiding Jerusalem. The religious leaders are seeking to kill him. They're seeking to kill him not because of their own beliefs. He believes the wrong things. They're losing power, and they see the people turning for him. Now, the Feast of Booths is also known Sukkoth, or the Feast of the Tabernacles. That's when we carried God in the tents across through Exodus, and they celebrate the Feast of the Tabernacles. This used to be one of my favorite holidays to celebrate as a kid because we would build these sort of wooden shacks, like lean-tos, and then we would go sleep in them under the stars, because the idea is our people in Exodus also slept under the stars. I always like that one. And now they are celebrating this. People are going to Jerusalem. They're supposed to go to Jerusalem now for this holiday. And so it commemorates that time of the temporary shelters before the temple was built in Deuteronomy 16. Before Solomon's temple, the center of worship was this portable tabernacle. And one of the reasons I love this holiday when I was a kid is we would build these little shelters outside of the synagogue, and I was up in the North Woods, and then we would sleep in them. And I thought of it as camping, but it's spiritual camping. We're thinking about what it means to not have a home, not have a place, and it's remembering the past. So John's account is that his brothers, Jesus' brothers, say, well, go up to the feast. And Jesus says, I'm not going. My time has not yet come. It says that his brothers did not believe in him at this point, which is sad. And we knew a little bit of this because we knew that his brothers at this point were not considered parts of his disciples, his apostles. We know later James will be. He'll be the head of the church in Jerusalem. And he says, you go ahead, you go. The world can't hate you, but it hates me because I testify that their works are evil. That line always struck me, that some people hate Christians. And is it because of a behavior we're doing? We should always reflect on, what it is we're doing or saying. But sometimes it's just because of us looking at Jesus, who puts a plumb line against the world and says it's not doing the right thing. What he represents, the world rejects him because of the fact that he says you're doing evil. And we do evil all the time. So Jesus initially stays in Galilee, but it says that later he goes up to the feast quietly, not publicly. And the people in Jerusalem are looking for him, like, where is he? And some people are like, no, he's a good man. And other people are saying, no, he's deceiving people. I mean, people are mixed with this, but no one speaks in authority openly about this because everyone's afraid of the religious authorities and what power they have. So halfway through the festival, Jesus suddenly appears in the temple, starts teaching. People are stunned. Like, how does this man know so much without being studied, without being one of these official scribes or scholars? He didn't go through rabbinic training. Back in that time, you would follow a rabbi, and like Gamaliel or Hillel, and they would have a group of students that would follow them around, and the teacher would teach them. There was no official schools at that point. And that's what they thought that this was, is that Jesus now has a school of his own because his disciples, his apostles, follow him around and learn from his teaching. But they weren't really dismissing his teaching. They were amazed at how good he was, and that his answers, if they were nonsense, they just would have made fun of him. But instead they were marveling at him, but also, I think, feeling threatened because they know that their authority is in question. And rather than debating him on the substance, like saying, well, according to Rabbi so-and-so, you're wrong. Instead, they just accused him of being possessed and having blasphemy. And it wasn't a theological argument. It was a power struggle. And so then they asked, well, whose authority are you teaching with? And Jesus says, this teaching isn't mine. It is from the one who sent me. Anyone who wants to do God's will can recognize that. Meaning, not you. You don't want to do God's will because you're not recognizing it. And he calls them out and says, Moses gave you the law. None of you keep it. It's a heavy accusation, and particularly, I think, to the Pharisees, because they thought they were keeping it. They were putting rules around rules so they would keep it. And yet he's like, you're not even following what you say you follow. So then the crowds turn on him saying, you have a demon. Who is trying to kill you? No one tries to kill you. And we know that many of the people knew there was a plot to kill him. There were people who absolutely knew that this was a plot to kill him. Actually, I found this, and like I said, not biblical, but the king in Africa wrote Jesus and said, hey, they're trying to kill you there. Why don't you come live in my country? And well, by the way, heal me too. I won't kill you. I'll protect you. They were trying to make him discredited, like, oh, you're paranoid. You say that people are trying to kill you. So then he brings up a specific moments. He goes, I did work and you marveled at it, referring to the healing at the man at the pool of Bethesda in John 5, which he did on Sabbath. They accused him of breaking Sabbath law. They accused the man of breaking Sabbath law. And Jesus points out to them this inconsistency. You allow circumcision on the Sabbath, even though the law that came before Moses from Abraham. But when I heal someone on Sabbath, you want to kill me. He's highlighting their twisted way that they use the law to serve their purposes. I think we see that in modern times where governments or officials will turn their eyes away because they have a vested interest in not following the law. So then Jesus says, well, stop judging by appearances, judge by the right judgment. Instead of looking at the earthly things, look at the godly things. He accuses them of clinging to their expectations instead of opening up their eyes to what God was doing right here, right in front of them. And so the people were saying, no one's trying to kill you. The crowd knew otherwise. And the people were captivated by Jesus and afraid what might happen if they supported him, it says, openly. So they wouldn't do it. Later, Jesus goes back to the temple and says, you know me, you know where I came from, but I'm not here in my own authority. I've been sent by the one who is true. And again, no one could arrest him. His time had not yet come. This theme runs throughout the Gospel of John. Jesus operates on divine timing. And it's redemption that has a schedule that this is going to happen in this proper time. Like I said, not the time that's on the clock, but the time has arrived. When the time arrives. So that's what he's operating on. And some people believe in him and wonder, when the Messiah comes, will he do more signs than this man? And some people believe in him. And then others will say, well, when the Messiah comes, will he do even more signs than this man? In other words, how much more do we need to see? What is it that we need? And, the people need to believe in him. And the Pharisees get nervous. They send the temple guard to arrest him. And Jesus says to them, I'll be with you a little while longer, but then I'm going to the one who sent me. You'll look for me, you won't find me. Where I'm going, you cannot come. And the people are confused, like, where could he go that we couldn't follow? Is he going to the Greek lands? The dispersion, meaning, the lands where Jews had been sent, the diaspora before them? Are you going out there and into the Gentile lands? And they just didn't understand. He's talking about going back to heaven to be with the Father. And so then comes this powerful moment that on the last day of the feast, Jesus stands up and cries out, if anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. And, I think if anyone believes in him, we take on that aspect that when we believe in God and we have the Spirit within us, let's say that I am full of water because I believe in Jesus, and I'm not saying I am, but let's say I am, and I'm wet, and out of me, I will get everyone else wet. I think that's the idea. But this is huge. This is what's coming from God. Just like Moses provided the bread. No, he didn't. God provided the bread. We might be where the water is flowing out of us, but it's God who is presenting that water. You also think back at Exodus as well, where Moses tapped his staff on the stone and water flowed out of it. This is spiritual water. So this is huge. During Sukkoth, the priests would come out and get water from the pool of Siloam and pour it on the altar. It's a way of praying for rain. I mean, we don't live in a desert. Well, I don't live in a desert culture, but we pray for rain. But it's also about something more. about blessings from God that you want them to flow like water over the people. And Jesus stood there right in the middle of this water ceremony and claimed to be the source of living water. So he is now connecting his teachings to what's going on right there around him, and connecting it too to what he said to the Samaritan woman in John 4. So then John adds a note here that he was speaking about the Spirit. Those who believe in him were going to receive the Spirit that had not come yet, because Jesus had not yet been glorified yet. And people reacted strongly, saying, he's a prophet, he's the Christ, he's a Messiah. And then others were like, well, can the Messiah really come from Galilee? They were expecting someone maybe from Bethlehem, which they didn't realize Jesus was from Bethlehem in the line of David. Or they were expecting someone from Jerusalem, or someone to appear, magically in front of them. So again, Jesus causes divisions because of their reaction to him, not because he's causing division, but because of how they react. Some people wanted to arrest him. Others were amazed by him. The temple guards came back empty-handed, and the Pharisees were like, well, why didn't you bring him? And they said, no one has ever spoken like this man. Now, I believe that this would have been Herod's guards, not the Roman guards. That's a big statement. And he is saying, he out-argued us. No one else speaks like him. No one talks like him. And the Pharisees are like, have you been deceived? Has any rulers of the Pharisees believed in him? Us officials who say who is the right person and who is not the right person? And, you're just looking at this with your own authority, trying to define truth. And then Nicodemus speaks up. And like I said, I just love this whole Nicodemus story. That's a dude I want to meet in heaven. And this is the same guy we meet in John 3, that it says, does our law judge a man without hearing him first? Then they shoot him down. They say, well, what? Are you from Galilee too? I imagine snotty in my head, like, oh, are you just like one of these rubes from Galilee who believe in Jesus, and you're like one of them now too? Search the scriptures. You'll see no prophet comes from Galilee, which ironically, they're wrong. Jonah was from Galilee. Nahum was from Galilee, and Hosea too. So they're just not even rejecting Jesus at this point. They're just missing the scriptures that they believe in themselves. And so Nicodemus was a member of the Sanhedrin, and this was a moment that would probably put him in real danger. And the conversation now turns into accusations. It's no longer about truth. It's about shutting people down. We don't want to hear what Nicodemus has to say, because maybe he has a good point and maybe we should, consider it. No, now Nicodemus must be stopped as well. The end of John 53 through John 8:6, doesn't appear in the earliest manuscripts. And sometimes it's put into brackets, meaning that section is like in dispute. We just don't know if it was added as a side note to sort of explain something, or if it was added, or if it was there and somehow left off on the earlier manuscripts. So to have some continuity of the story, we'll talk about John 7:5-3 at the next podcast when we talk about John 8. What I'm going to meditate on this week is about how Jesus continues to offer that spiritual nourishment, that living water, the bread of life. And even when he was in danger, he shows up at the feast to give that argument, not to cause fear and division, but it still came up the same way. And what I'm going to pray about is that I never have that division with myself, that I don't create division with other people, but I know that it may happen because Jesus' statements cause people to react with the division. Wouldn't it be nice if Jesus came to earth and we all went, oh, you're right, Jesus, we've been stupid all along. We'll do better. We will follow in your path. And instead, it's just not there. We don't look out for the hard truths. And so I pray that I always look out for the hard truths, even when it doesn't fit what I expect. And what I'm going to share with others is that idea that Jesus is going to bring division. He always has. He always will, until the end of time, until we're up there and have it all together. And people will be divided. They were divided in the temple. They were divided in the crowd. They were divided in leadership. Even in some families, they are divided. Same thing happens today. Some people hate Christianity because of what Jesus says, not just because of what a Christian did or what happened in the past. They'll say, "Oh, I like Jesus. I just don't like Christians." You know what? I have a feeling that they don't like what Jesus said either. And sometimes they reject Christ for that reason. It's like a spiritual fight. Sometimes it's a personal fight. Sometimes it's a governmental fight. We don't want to know that that is the truth. All right, everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you listening. You can always reach me at Jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to pray for you. And please remember to subscribe and tell a friend about this. I'm trying to build a community. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful week.